Have you found that your schedule is all maxed out? You are so busy day in and day out, and that you find your days are filled with client activities, business operations, and that there's nothing, no room or capacity for anything else? This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, and spending too much time working in your business doesn't leave any time for you to be able to work on your business, doing those high productive activities that are going to be able to drive your firm forward. So I want to give you a couple examples of busyness versus productivity to get started. And the very first one is lack of priorities. What that means is so much of your time is spent checking emails, answering the phone, dealing with the day-to-day operations, and it doesn't give you any time available to focus on those impactful activities like strategic planning or streamlining processes, business development that will drive your firm forward in a very strategic way. So lack of priorities is the very first one. The second one is the dopamine rush. This is where you have your to-do list and you love checking off things on your to-do list because it feels rewarding. But there's no time left for those things that once again are going to focus on business development and being able to advance your firm forward in a very specific way. So yes, it is a lot of fun to be able to check off those activities, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those activities are going to help work towards those long-term goals. Number 3 is the multitasking myth. We have been told that doing many, many different things at once is the quickest way to get things done. But that isn't really how our brains work. What we actually do and what actually is more productive is dedicating focused time to those single tasks. And as a result of that, you're doing a higher quality work and you tend to be actually more efficient. You get more done in less time because you're not going back and forth, which might access different parts of your brain for different things. Number 4 is the hustle culture. This is where we have been told that working long hours without any breaks is a badge of honor. But really what it is something that's going to lead to exhaustion. So you are going to do actually much better if you build in breaks during the day in order to allow your brain to actually step away, recharge, and just give it a rest every once in a while. So those are 4 examples of busyness versus productivity: is lack of priorities, the dopamine rush, the multitasking myth, and the hustle culture. Now, let's talk about why we fall into that busyness trap. And the very first one, which is a little bit similar to what I was talking about, is cultural conditioning. You've been told that being busy is something that you ought to be. It makes you feel important. So that's the very first one, is cultural conditioning. The second one is fear of missing out, FOMO. You don't want to miss out on an opportunity, so you say yes to more than what you have a capacity for. As a result of that, your calendar is filled with a lot of things. Some of them are aligned with moving your firm forward. Others are not. They're just kind of going off on a different path. And because of that, you find yourself spread too thin. And the third one is there's this false sense of urgency. And this happens when you treat all tasks and activities equally, whether they're actually critical or not. So consider the time that you pushed your own agenda aside because a client had a crisis. So those are 3 reasons why we fall into the busyness trap: is cultural conditioning, fear of missing out, and there's that false sense of urgency. So there's a downside of being busy. It is that it is exhausting. It actually takes away your motivation. You feel more blah and humdrum, and you wonder why you're doing all these things because it feels like you're just on a hamster wheel. As a result, you lose sight of those long-term goals and activities. And the reason why you decided to do this, the priorities just get pushed aside because you're focusing on somebody else's priorities instead of your own. And as a result of this, it affects your well-being as well as creeping into your personal time. So here is a way to carve out more focused time in order to be able to drive your firm forward and also reduce your daily stressors. This is where you start to take charge of your agenda. This one that I'm sharing with you is based on Steve Covey's time management matrix. That's a mouthful. Anyway, it's an easy way to actually start to prioritize tasks based on their importance and urgency. It's a matrix, so there's like 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll go through all 4 of them. Quadrant 1, upper left-hand corner, is the things that are urgent and important. These are the things that have a short deadline. They have to be done right now. And that might be something like finishing a client's tax returns before the filing deadline or the extension deadline. So number 1 is things that are urgent and important. Quadrant number 2 is things that are important but not urgent. These are the productive activities you do today that grow your firm towards something tomorrow. So what you do today leads towards your firm's future success. An example is transitioning your services to packages and value pricing your services and actually implementing it, not just with the new clients, but also with your legacy clients. Number 3 is urgent, but not important. This might feel like certain emails that you are getting, some of the meetings that you attend, interruptions that break your concentration. So examples of that is maybe starting out your day by opening up emails and then immediately responding to all the emails, including those non-critical ones, because your inbox is overflowing. And then number 4 is the things that are not urgent and not important. Consider all the time wasters, those things that just fill your schedule, or you start doing it just for that little 5-minute break, and then you find 45 minutes later, you're still kind of scrolling through your feed or absorbed on social media. So those are some things to think about. Is starting your day by opening emails might have you do things that you don't want to do. They're time wasters. Maybe you're spending too much time scrolling on social media because you want to avoid something that feels like it's going to be tedious or difficult, or you're doing low-tech work that could be delegated to a team member. So those are the 4 quadrants of the time management method by Steve Covey. Is upper left hand is urgent and important. That's quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is important but not urgent. Lower quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. And number 4 is not urgent and not important. So something to think about. Out of all those 4 quadrants, quadrant number 2 is actually the most impactful. By dedicating your time on things that are important but not urgent, then you end up dedicating time to your firm's future growth and success in a very, very strategic, meaningful way. And if this is something that interests you, you want to get started, I'm going to give you some steps right now that you can do to start thinking about this and implementing and have that mindfulness, because whatever you pay attention to expands and grows. So the ways to be able to get started with this and take in charge of your agenda, the very first thing is awareness. And what I want you to do is open up a new spreadsheet. And in column 1, I just want you to start keeping a tally of every single thing that you do in your firm during the week, whether it's during business hours or even after hours, things that you get compensated for, things that you don't get compensated for. And then in column number 2, we're going to start to categorize. So all the things that you listed in column number 1, next in column number 2, categorize them into one of those 4 quadrants. So you give it a 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on their urgency and their level of importance. Number 3 is looking at minimizing quadrants 3 and 4. Those are the things that either you can delegate, you can eliminate, or maybe even batch these activities together. And question yourself, challenge, are these things really necessary, the quadrant 3s and the quadrant 4s? Or is there someone else who can do these activities in order to free up your time for higher level work? And then the next thing to look at is we want to prioritize quadrant 2. So schedule time, even if it's only 1 hour a week that you have capacity for right now, to be able to start focusing, working on your business instead of just in your business. And one of the things to think about is that by having dedicated time, even if it's just 1 hour a week, and doing it consistently will drive your firm forward. And then number 5 is handle quadrant 1. So create a process for when true emergencies do occur in order to be able to handle them. And something to think about with those emergencies, did they occur because of procrastination? Or is it that you could put a system in place and that would go ahead and remove the emergency? Once again, sometimes emergencies happen because procrastination. It didn't feel immediate enough until the very end when it was finally due. So that's one way to look at it. And the other thing is maybe there is no system, and that's why it maybe fell through the cracks and all of a sudden became an emergency. So you might need a system to be able to avoid that from becoming an emergency at some point in the future. Anyway, those are the ways to start getting started. Awareness, start categorizing, minimize quadrants 3 and 4, prioritize quadrant 2, and handle quadrant 1. And make sure that you have maybe some systems in place to avoid those important, urgent things from reoccurring over and over again. So the goal is not to be busy, it is to be productive. Shift your focus from simply doing more to accomplishing the things that really drive the needle forward, that are going to be effective in growing your firm in a very strategic way. This means dedicating time to work on your business, even if it's just that 1 hour a week right now, instead of just working in your business. By doing that, it allows you to grow your firm and also alleviate the burnout. So are you ready to get out of the busyness trap? If so, join me on Wednesday, October 9th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific for my complimentary masterclass, Time Management Secrets, Solutions to Take Charge of Your Agenda. If that interests you, you want to take charge of your agenda, you're tired of being in a hamster wheel and having everybody else's emergency become your crisis, then go to businesssuccesssolution.com/time and we will get that done. Once again, it's at businesssuccesssolution.com/time. Let me know how this resonated with you, something that this affirmed, if there's something that you feel you can immediately implement because of what we focused on today. Would love to get your input and your feedback. I look forward to talking to you soon. Lauren Fogelman, showing firm owners how to double their income working half the time.